All right, here we are. This is our last explore in our last unit here. And really, this is looking at some evidence for the early universe in terms of the Big Bang Theory. So we're going to transition to the slides, kind of walk through some of those ideas, and then go through our homework helper video. So what we're looking at here is what leads us to have this evidence for our Big Bang Theory. So again, going back to this idea of expansion and shift in frequencies in wavelengths for light. So some of the evidence, this idea of plasma, they talked about it in our previous videos, but plasma, right, is this idea of a state where we have this highly excited state where we basically have free electrons, we have molecules, but we don't have the same molecular structures that we see in a solid, a liquid, or even a gas. So it's kind of this soup of electrons and protons, and all of our fundamental particles just kind of gobbled up. We see this different examples of plasma. We have lightning, the solar wind as a form of plasma. The aurora borealis that you can see in the poles is an example of plasma. But this idea that we started out with basically this soup of particles that, as they cooled, started to form the molecules and structures that we're used to. So the kind of three stages of the universe here, we start with this idea of electrons, protons, and neutrons. And so in the very, 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 very beginning, this extremely hot plasma of ions, they could combine briefly, but then there was so much heat and so much energy that it just break apart. And as things cool, we start to get larger nuclei. So hydrogen and helium start to form, and then they can start to fuse into different molecules. And then again, as it expands even more, we start to get the atoms that we have as our fundamental building blocks, and those would then combine through fusion to produce larger and larger elements. And we've talked about how the heavier elements past iron, they get produced from the supernova events. So how this was observed, again, the video talked about this a little bit before, but this idea of this cosmic microwave background shows that it's basically the whole universe is filled with this radiation, and that shows a really strong evidence for the Big Bang Theory that this has emanated everywhere, and that we have through time this stretching of these wavelengths, which would then give us these microwaves that we would see. The book has some different examples of this. So looking at this and looking at the early plasma, right, this radiation has been stretched to longer wavelengths, and that's where we see these Doppler shifts. This is a view of just our Milky Way, and we can see that in the middle there. As we take this out, there is the cosmic microwave background, which we can see permeates through the universe, and again is really strong evidence for this idea of the Big Bang. All right, that's it. It's a short section. I'll go into the homework helper video, and then that will be it. The next thing you'll have to do after this is your lesson self-check.